Today we will be digi-learning to use inputs and key presses. So we're going to be looking at using letters and numbers and arrow keys, and whenever we press them to make something happen. And then what we'll learn about is motion. So we'll learn about moving forward, and we'll learn about rotation. And we'll connect those two together so that we can actually move when we press the keys.
Woohoo! That sounds fun!
Sure does. You ready to get going?
Alright, so by now you guys should have your spaceship ready. So what we're going to do is we're going to work on some of the coding. So we will start in this place here, code. So make sure you're clicked on your spaceship, not clicked on the cat, but clicked on the spaceship. I'm going to go to our code. Now for what we're doing, the spaceship is a little bit too big. So I'm going to take my size down, probably to about, I don't know, how big's 20? 20 is not a bad size. I quite like that, so we'll stick with that. And what we're going to do is we're going to make this spaceship move. So when we push a key on our keyboard, we're going to make it so that the spaceship takes off. Well, flies around our solar system. So how are we going to do that? Well, over here we have these coding blocks. And they are in different groups. So we've got motion, so that is everything to do with movement. So move 10 steps, go to X, Y. We'll explain those things in a later video, but for today we're not going to look at those ones so much. We've got things like changing X and Y and pointing towards the mouse pointer, point in direction. They're all to do with movement and how this rocket moves. Okay, then we've got looks here. Looks does things like if we want to make it talk, we want to change the way it looks. So this is switched costume. So if we have more than one costume, we have a look here at our costumes. We've just got one. If we have a look at our cat costume, if I just show that for a second, our cat, we've got two costumes. So if we were to switch costumes, we'd be switching between those two. And that's what we can use for our animation sometimes. But we're not going to use that today. But this is the thing that's going to change our looks. And the other main ones that we're going to use are sensing. Sensing checks whether something has happened. Sensing senses whether we've pushed a key or whether it's touching something. Our character here is touching something else. So it's going to sense that something is happening. The other ones that we're going to use is events. This is one that we will use a lot. Okay, so this tells our program when something happens, when to do something, like when to make that action. So for us, we're going to use one very commonly, which is the start flag, which means whenever I click the start flag, whatever is connected to this code will run. So for us, that's going to be very important in a moment. And then in here we have our control. So this is going to use codes such as forever. So forever is a really important one as well. Let's make sure that forever is always checking, all the time checking. And this is important. We will use this a lot because we're always having to check for things like if we're pushing the key or if we're touching something. Again, we're always checking. So we use that forever a lot. And we also use this if then or if then else. Again, these will be used a lot because these kind of things we use for such as if I push a key, then do something. So I might say if I push a key, then move. So that's what we use these ones for. So for us, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be having this rocket. And really what we're saying is if I press a key, if I push my up arrow, because that's the arrow key that we usually use for directions, what we want our rocket to do is to move forward, to go up like that. At the moment, I'm just using my mouse to do it, but we're not going to use that in our program. So the way we do it is we're going to use our events. I'm going to start with this one here. And this is the start above everything else because when we click this flag up here, it's going to run our program. It's going to start our program. So what we're going to do is we need to bring that in at the beginning because that's going to be the start of our program. And what we're going to say is forever, when we click the start flag, this forever is always going to be checking. It's like a loop that goes around and around. So if I was to just draw this just quickly, you don't have to draw this, but forever, when your program runs, okay, our loop just goes around. So this is forever checking. And so what it'll do is it'll check everything within the code and then get back together to the beginning, and then it'll check everything in the code again, back to the beginning. So it just goes around and round and round in a continuous loop. So let's have a look here. So we're going to be checking all the time to see if someone pushes a button. So the way that we do that, again, when I said that, we're going to be checking if someone presses a button. So we use this one here. If someone presses a button, then do something. So this code is really cool. I like this code. If something happens, then do something. Basically, it's English. We're telling it what we want it to do. If I press a button, then do something. So can you remember what was the one which checks whether we press a button? Checks that something is happening, that we press a button. Well, it's sensing. Okay, and the one that we use is, you'll see here, there's one that says key space pressed. So the key space pressed, space is the space bar. Okay, so if we click this arrow here, we're going to get options. I'm not sure if you'll see them all, but if you don't see them all, it gives me up arrow, down arrow, right arrow, left key, and all of those. Right, so for us, we're just going to use the up arrow. So we say here, if the up arrow is pressed, we're going to do something. Okay, so what do we want to do when the up arrow is pressed? Well, basically, we want to move. Do you remember where move was? If we had these things in here, what was the thing that means move? The words give you a clue. Motion, right? So motion is movement. And today, we're just going to use this one here, which is move 10 steps. So we'll put that in there. So what is this doing? We'll go through it again. When I click the play button, we're going to keep checking forever. We're going to keep running through this code to see if the up arrow key is pressed. And if it is pressed, we're going to move 10 steps. Let's have a look at this. Press the up arrow key. Oh, hang on. We're moving sideways. Why is that? Well, the way that Scratch and other coding programs work the same is initially, we have a look at this cat. This is our first sprite that we used. Okay, if I click on the eye, I can see him. Now, what we can do is we can put this code onto the cat by dragging it and putting it over top of the cat and putting it there. So now that code is on the cat without having to do it again. If I click play and we press the up key, you'll see that the cat is moving forward. So initially, it is set up so that if we press up, move 10 steps is going to be in the forward position. Not up, but forward. So our space rocket, we're going to have to work out a way to make our space rocket go in that forward direction. Think about it. How can we make this space rocket go forward? We have actually learned the way to do it, because it's going to be a little bit of something that we do in costumes. Can you work it out? Maybe not, but I will show you. Maybe you did. Maybe you're very clever and you already figured this out. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to click on the select button and we're going to select our whole space rocket. We can group that so that when we select it, it selects everything. Okay, and what we have is we have this thing here that turns our spaceship. It turns our spaceship like this. But the thing is, like when we turn our spaceship, sometimes it might not be exactly how we want it. And we want it so that it can be exactly across. Now I can get it close, but I can't get exact. I don't think I can. So I'm going to go back for a second. I'm going to click this button, but at the same time, I'm going to hold down the Shift key on your keyboard. And what that does is it will lock it into positions where it is rotating at 45 degrees. 45, 90. And that way, we can get it so that it goes directly sideways. But we're also going to drag this rocket. We're going to put it so that its base is at the center mark. Okay, so why are we doing this? Well, I mean, it doesn't matter. You can put it up here a little bit as well. It doesn't have to be exactly the center. But what's going to happen is in a moment, our rocket is going to rotate. And this position here is where it's going to rotate around. So you've got to think, if you put a pin through there, through that center position, it would rotate around that pin. So if you want to rotate around the bottom, we're going to put it there. But if you want to rotate it around a little bit in the middle, then you put it there. Okay, so if we go back to our code, all right, I'm just going to click on here, click the play button, push the up arrow key, and we now are going in the right direction. We no longer need our cat though. All right, he's now getting in the way, so we'll get rid of him. But our rocket's going in the right direction. That's pretty cool. But it only goes one direction. So how do we make it go in the other directions? Do you think you could work that out? If we were to push this, how can we make it go in other directions? Well, we're going to use a thing called rotation. Okay, this thing over here. We have turn and we have turn here. So what we're going to do is we're going to rotate. If we push the left arrow, the right arrow, we're going to rotate our ship. Okay, so let's do that again. Where was F? Do you remember? And the control. F. Where was the sensing? Sorry, where was the key press? It wasn't sensing. I just gave you a clue. Okay, and we're going to look for the one which is key space pressed. And we're going to change that to left arrow. Okay. Now, rotation, what was that in? Motion. It's a movement. Now, which one is turning left? We see this one, it rotates to the right. Okay, it goes that way. All right, this one, it goes to the left. So we want to use this one here. All right, so if we click on play and we push the left key, okay, now our ship spins one direction. Our right's not working yet because we haven't set it up. But if we turn and go forward, now we can actually get some sideways movement. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, so what I want you to do, I want you to see if you can create the right key to go the right direction. Basically, you're going to repeat this, but you're going to have it with the right, and you're going to have it going the right direction. Play around with it, see if you can get it. Now, just one thing, when you make your code, and you put that if in there, you want to make sure it's in the forever loop, not in the up arrow loop. You put that if inside the other if, that means you have to push both the up and the left arrow key for it to work at the same time, and that's not what we want. So make sure you do not put it inside another if. So go ahead now and see if you can do the left direction. Okay, I'm going to do this a quick way. We've used this code before, all right, and there's a way in Scratch we don't have to write code again all the time, but we right click on there and we go duplicate, and it makes a copy of that one. All right, and this one we're going to change to right arrow. But this direction is the wrong direction. We want it to go to the right. So that is the right there. Play. We got a rocket that goes and moves in all sorts of directions. Well done if you've got this far. You now have a moving rocket. But we're going to add just a little bit of animation to this. So the animation that we're going to add is a bit of flames when we're moving. Okay, so we're going to create our costume. Okay, and we are going to draw some flames. So we're going to duplicate this one. And then what we're going to do is using this tool here, we're going to create some flames from the bottom. Okay, so remember, join it at the blue dot. Okay, and we're going to make some flames, making sure that at the end we go from blue dot to blue dot. And that will create that there. And what color do I want this? Well, I'm going to make it red, and then I'm going to duplicate this again and make this one yellow. I'm going to duplicate it again. I'm going to make this one orange. Oopsie, I didn't select it, did I? Make that orange. There we go. Okay, so we've got 3 colors. We could leave it like that. That's not bad. That's okay. And if you want to leave it like that, you can. But what we want to do is, I actually want to make it so that it looks a bit different each time. So I'm going to use this dot thing here. I'm just going to move these dots around a bit so that they're in different places. Okay. So here like that one in there. Make that one a little bit wider. So there we go. That's number 2. Okay, so you see we got here, and it's going like that, and it's different. Number 3, we're going to do it one more time and make this one different again. So yeah, drag that one up to there, drag that one up to there. Okay, all right. So now I've got 3 different kinds of flames, and they are, look at that, they are looking good. So we're going to go back to our code once we've done that. And if you haven't done that, just pause the video and catch up, and then we will go to our code. So what we want it to do is whenever we press the up arrow key, we want it to do this animation. So we're going to do this in a little bit of new code. All right, so we're going to set this up the same as we've set the beginning of this up. So we're going to get a start flag. We're going to check forever. And we're going to say if, and what we're going to do is when the up arrow is pressed, when we go forward, we want it to do this one here. Okay, so we're going to say the same sensing is for our key press. So we go key press. I'm going to say up arrow. So when the up arrow key is pressed, we're going to do a random animation. Okay, so we're going to go to our looks because our looks was our costume. I'm going to say switch to costume. All right, and at the moment, what we want it to do is we want it to go to a random costume. All right, we want it to pick a random one. So we don't know what order it's going to be. It's going to just pick a random costume. So let's go to our operators. This is a new one for you. So in our operators, we have mathematical equations, we have greater than, less than, we have ands, ors, nots, and we'll get into those a lot more later. But for now, we're going to pick a random number, 1 to 10. So we're going to go back to our costumes. We're going to have a look. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 costumes. When we press the up key, we want it to do the flames. So it's only costumes 2, 3, and 4. So we're going to go to our code and we're going to say pick a random costume between 2 and 4. So what it'll do is if we hold down the up key, you'll see what that does is that changes our fire. And it's going to pick a random costumes. But the thing is, when we take our finger off, it's still there. And what we want is we don't want a flame when we haven't got our finger down. So we use this thing which is called else. Okay, so in the control, we have this one here. And it says if something, then something, else something. So it's very much the same as this one. So we're going to put this information in here, and this information in here. We're going to get rid of this one. To get rid of it, we just take it over to the side and throw it over there. We're going to put that one in there. So what we're saying here is if we push the up arrow, we're going to switch to a random costume. Otherwise, if we're not pushing anything, if we're not pushing the up arrow, we want it to be just a normal costume. So let's have a look at our costumes. Our first costume is the one that is normal. So let's go back to our code. We're going to go to our looks and we're going to switch to costume. And what costume was that one that was normal? Number 1, right? Costume number 1. So let's have a look. Go play. Here we have no fire. And here we have ignition. Cool stuff, eh? Now you have a flying rocket. So that is the end of our section today, because you have managed to learn all that you have to learn for this lesson, and you'll be ready for the next one and our great adventures.